This is the third in a series of coaching videos. The first one, 5 things to know before you get coaching or have coaching. The second one, 5 tips to get the most out of coaching. Those were available earlier in the week, and you can see those up here. Link is in the text description. And this one, as the title says, is 5 things you can try if you can't have coaching. Now, it's very important for me to stress right at the beginning that not everybody can improve on their own. And what I mean is that you need a certain type of mentality for being the person who actively goes out and learn. Yes, everybody can just go and play and get better, but that's a passive learning. That's learning without trying to learn. So these tips are for people who are actively trying to improve, and they won't work for everybody, but they might work for you. Now, I've said many times before that the best way to improve for nearly everybody is to get coaching, but that's not always possible. Now, I'm going to give you 5 ideas for you to try to see whether they help improve your game. Number 0. Yeah, I know that's strange, number 0. Well, that's because number 0 is watch coaching videos. Now, it's kind of like a little tautological statement because you're watching this video. Now, this might be the very first video that you've ever watched about improving your game, about coaching, about training. So I didn't want to make it one of the 5, but it's one that if you haven't done it and this is your first, that is a great way. There are plenty of videos available for training, for coaching, for technique, for tactics. I've got plenty, but there are lots of other coaches on YouTube as well. So go and look at as many of those as you can and find the coach, the presentation style, the information that you feel comfortable with. So that's the 0. What you're doing now, but to a greater extent. Number 1, watch professional match videos. Now, on YouTube there are plenty of them, and of course you've got PSA TV, and that's the number 1 resource. You can consider subscribing to their channel. Sorry, I don't mean their channel, I mean their service, because you pay money and you get access to, I think it's over a decade's worth of professional matches. But there are plenty that you can watch on YouTube and maybe other places, Vimeo or places like that, for free as well. So you don't have to make a financial commitment. But one thing I have to stress is there is a difference between watching sport for pleasure and watching sport for analysis. Now, I've made a video about what you should do when you watch a professional squash match to learn. You can watch that here, but I'll summarize it very quickly. The first thing to do is forget the ball. The ball doesn't tell you anything in this context. Yes, when you're watching, it's for pleasure. It's fun to sort of look at the ball, but forget the ball. Watch one player. Watch one player, how they move. Watch one player for their shot selection. Watch one player for what they are looking at. Then watch the same game again, but watch the other player. If you want to watch the match again, look for patterns. Look for how often they play straight. James Willstrop is a great person to watch because very often he doesn't hit one boast in the first game, sometimes not even in the second. He's the kind of player who avoids boasts. Now, you might say that that's to do with his technique or his tactics. I suggest that because he's quite tall, getting further forward is quite hard for him, so he avoids those boasts because if somebody counter drops, it's harder work for him. That's my guess. I haven't really analysed it. But the point I'm trying to make is that you'll notice particular players have particular tactics, and that's important because just because a pro does something doesn't mean that you should do it. Now, regular viewers will know one of my catchphrases. You are not a pro, but you can train like one. And what I'm saying here in this second part of number 1 is just because you see a pro do something in a particular way for a particular reason, it doesn't mean that you should. Okay, so you might see a professional breaking their wrist when they hit the ball. You might see a professional player playing lots of backhand drop shots from the back or through their legs, like Mr. El Shabaghi. Doesn't mean you should. Yeah, of course you should go have a try because it's fun. But when you do watch these matches for analysis, don't think you have to copy every single thing, because you're not training for 4 or 5 hours every single day. You haven't been playing squash since you were 8 years old pretty much every day. You are not a pro, but you can still learn a lot from them, but you can't copy every single thing. Number 2, play as many different types of players as possible. We have this adage which is the only way to improve is to play people better than you, and that's not true. When you play people who are not as good as you, you need to make changes. You need to maybe limit yourself. You need to work on specific aspects. Because if it were true, then the person who was number 1 in the world would never practice with anybody. I'm better than everybody else. Why am I going to practice? So it's clearly not true. And the number 1 would only, number 1 in your club or your facility would say, no, I have to go outside to practice. Maybe there are people like that, but it's not true. So by playing as many different people as possible, and when I say different people, I'm really talking about different styles. Yes, there will be different standards, but if you can play different styles, you will learn quite quickly how to adapt to different situations. That's why playing boxes, playing leagues, playing tournaments, playing club team matches is so useful for your game, because you are exposed to different players. Now, I haven't done any scientific research, but I can almost guarantee that if you took 2 players, one player who only played the club number 1 all of the time, and the difference was quite significant, but this player only played him or her all of the time. And then you took another player, and this player played 20 different types of players regularly, and they both played 100 matches. I'm pretty sure that the one who played the different players would improve more than the one who just played the one player who was better than them. Now, I know it's easy for me to sit here on my sofa and say, play as many different players as you can. And the reality is that there might not be very many people in your facility, in your club, in your area, but make the effort. Remember, this is about active learning, and active means making effort to go out and find different people, go to another club, go to that particular tournament, ask the people that you play, do you know anybody else I can play? Play those different people and adapt to those situations. That will really, really help your game. Number 3. Now, I started with the introduction about how active learning is for a particular type of person, and not everybody has that enjoyment or that facility to go out and actively learn. And this number 3 is even more extreme, because number 3 is go on court and experiment with different techniques. Now, this is obviously for improving your technical aspect. It's not going to improve your tactical aspect, although you could argue that you could do that. But what I'm really emphasizing here, what I'm suggesting, is getting on court and trying different things, trying different preparation positions, or different speeds of preparation, or points of contact. You're trying to hit the ball a little bit cleaner, but you're not doing very well. Or maybe if you're hitting it a little bit early and it's coming back at you, that's because your point of contact is too far forward. Try to bring the contact further back. Now, as I said, not everybody can do that. So this is a specialized one. Now, you need to know what you should be doing first. So, of course, if you've done 0, which is watch the pros, you should have some idea, or watch some other coaching videos, should have some idea of what a good swing would look like. And knowing what you should be doing is very important. So I'm not suggesting just go on court and just try all sorts of weird things. I mean, no, that's not going to work. And, don't just be silly about it. Go on court and just try to experiment. And in fact, I made a video which was called 5 Things to Try on Your Bad Days. And that's the same kind of idea. So that's linked up here, also in the text description. So experiment, see if something works for you. So that's literally coaching yourself. Number 4 is don't be afraid to ask the better players in the club for advice, for help. Not necessarily coaching, because people might not want to coach you. But you might play somebody and you might lose, and you might say to them, thanks for the game. what can I do to improve? Why did you beat me? You can ask questions. How do you hit the ball straight so well? Can you see any mistakes in my technique? Now, you have to be careful. We have a phrase in English which is designed by committee. And what that means is that when there's not one person controlling or leading something, the result might be an amalgamation of everybody's ideas. And that could be good, or it could be very, very bad. And a thing that comes to mind is Homer's car, Homer from The Simpsons. He was in charge of designing this car and he was the wrong person, but it was a very clear management style. So what I'm saying is, sorry, I've gone a little off track here. What I'm saying is, talk to the people who are better than you in your club. Ask for some advice, but be aware that you might get conflicting advice, because the people who give you advice will be telling you what works for them. They've only ever thought about themselves, whereas a coach has seen lots of different players and will be able to work out what's best for you. So you go to one player and the player says, yeah, you have to get your racket, your hand above your head. That's the way you have to do it. And then another person says, no, you have to get your elbow above your shoulder, even if the racket's down, because, okay, fine. And then suddenly you're like, elbow above my head, hand above my head, and you'll be hitting the ball like this. So that's the idea of, designed by committee. So listen to what people are saying, maybe go back to number 4, experiment and see if it works for you. But there is a lot of wisdom in our community, and I made a video about that before. So don't be afraid to ask people. If you don't have access to a coach, ask the player who you most admire as far as technique or tactics is concerned. Maybe they'll give you some tips. Maybe they won't. I mean, you're a competitor, you're an opponent. They don't have to, but the squash community is generally very friendly, so I'm pretty sure they will. And the final one, number 5. Now, you're probably sick and tired of me telling you this, but I don't care. Visualization, mental imagery, mental rehearsal. Those 3 names are for the same thing. The idea of imagining, seeing something in your mind's eye. Now, there are people who can't do this. Fine. You might not be one of them. You're probably not one of them. It's not easy. You have to sit down, you have to close your eyes, breathe deeply, relax, and then imagine things happening. Now, you're possibly thinking, what the Philip are you talking about? What I'm saying is that the mind doesn't know very well the difference between reality and what we project in our mind. If we project it clearly enough with the right kind of stimulus, it will believe it. It will believe that you can hit the ball correctly, that you swing properly. I'm not going to bore you with all of the details, but there have been many studies done that show that people who do visualization improve faster than people who don't. Not only that, it's possible to improve more than people who actually practice. Anyway, getting off track again. I've recently released a 10-day guided visualization challenge. If you're completely new to visualization, this is a good way to start. Or even look on the internet and find something else. If you don't like me or my presentation, fine. But go and do it. If you can't get coaching, this is a fantastic way to improve. You can see yourself making better decisions on court. You can see yourself not getting angry when somebody does something that annoys you. The ref gives you a bad decision. If these are the things that are stopping you from improving, you can address them in visualization. Well, there were the 5+1 tips for things that you can do if you can't get coaching, if you don't have access to a coach. I hope you enjoyed them. As always, if you've got any questions about them, post them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. On the screen at the moment is a subscription button. If you think my content is useful, please consider subscribing. There's also a list of the other coaching videos in this very short series, plus another video that YouTube thinks is a good fit for you based on what you've been watching. And remember, do something every single day to improve your squash. See ya.